Most people assume a successful cafe follows a universal formula: serve great coffee, find a busy street, and keep customers coming back. That sounds logical until you compare two cafes separated by the Pacific. One survives because customers walk in, order, grab a paper cup, and leave within 60 seconds. The other happily gives every morning customer free toast, a boiled egg, and a small salad with a single cup of coffee. One measures success by speed. The other invests time and even loses money on breakfast. Somehow, both businesses thrive. That contradiction raises a bigger question. If they sell nearly the same product, why do their profits come from completely different places? The answer has surprisingly little to do with coffee beans or espresso machines. Instead, it lies in customer psychology, commercial real estate, labor costs, payment systems, local regulations, and dozens of small decisions most customers never notice. Every cup carries invisible economic rules shaped by the country where it is served. Understanding those hidden rules changes how you see every neighborhood cafe. Behind every latte is a business model carefully designed for its market. To understand why American and Japanese cafes operate so differently, we first need to examine how each country's cafe culture evolved. That history explains why identical drinks produce different profits today for owners. America and Japan both love coffee, but they built cafe culture around completely different daily routines. In the United States, coffee became fuel for busy mornings. Commuters wanted caffeine before work, students needed quick refills, and office workers expected convenience. Speed became the product as much as the drink. Drive-through lanes, takeaway cups, and mobile ordering reinforced one expectation: get coffee fast and keep moving. Japan's relationship with cafes followed another path. Traditional kisaten shops were places to pause, read, meet quietly, or enjoy careful conversation. Even today, many customers expect a calm atmosphere where quality matters more than speed. Waiting several minutes for a carefully brewed cup feels normal rather than inconvenient. These cultural habits shaped every business decision owners make. American cafes often maximize morning traffic because that short rush generates much of the day's revenue. Japanese cafes frequently design spaces that encourage customers to stay longer, order dessert, and return throughout the week. Success depends less on selling another cup immediately and more on building lasting habits. Neither system is accidental. Each reflects housing patterns, commuting behavior, work culture, and customer expectations developed over decades. Even international chains adapt their stores to local expectations. Starbucks in America emphasizes speed, larger drinks, and drive-through expansion. Many Japanese locations provide quieter seating, smaller portions, and seasonal menu items tailored to repeat visitors. Independent operators push the contrast even further. Some occupy second-floor spaces where rent is lower because loyal customers will climb the stairs. Others use generous morning specials to encourage afternoon visits. These choices might seem cultural, but they are financial decisions disguised as hospitality. Every habit changes revenue, costs, staffing, and pricing. Before comparing profits, we need to understand the economic logic behind those habits. Once that foundation is clear, the surprising differences in ownership begin to make perfect sense. And it all starts with the simple question every owner must answer: what kind of customer? Walk into an American cafe between 7 and 10 in the morning, and you'll see a business built around urgency. Customers line up before work, place an order, collect a paper cup, and leave within minutes. Every extra second matters because the morning rush is limited. If a cafe can serve more people in those 3 hours, it can dramatically increase its daily revenue without adding more seats. The business is designed for throughput, where success depends on moving as many transactions as possible before the rush disappears. Many Japanese cafes approach the same morning with almost the opposite strategy. Instead of maximizing profit on breakfast, they often give customers a generous morning service. A single cup of coffee might include thick toast, a boiled egg, or even a small salad at no additional charge. On paper, the meal produces little or no profit. To an outsider, it looks like bad business. The hidden logic appears later in the day. Morning service acts as a loss leader, sacrificing short-term margin to build long-term loyalty. Customers who develop a routine are more likely to return for afternoon meetings, desserts, parfaits, or another coffee. Those later purchases carry much healthier margins than breakfast. Instead of measuring success by one profitable transaction, the cafe measures the value of a customer over months or even years. This difference reflects two distinct ways of thinking about revenue. American operators optimize each visit because customer traffic is unpredictable and convenience is the main selling point. Japanese operators often optimize the relationship, accepting a smaller profit today in exchange for repeated business tomorrow. Neither strategy is universally better. A busy downtown cafe near an American train station would struggle to give away breakfast during the morning rush. Likewise, a neighborhood cafe in Japan might lose its identity if it focused only on speed. The most successful owners don't copy another country's formula. They build a business around the habits of the people walking through the door. That simple difference changes everything, including how they manage costs. Revenue tells only half the story. Two cafes can sell the same number of coffees, charge similar prices, and still end the year with very different profits because of costs customers never notice. One of the biggest differences begins before the first customer even walks through the door. In the United States, when a cafe owner renovates a space by installing counters, plumbing, lighting, and seating, those leasehold improvements are usually depreciated over many years. If the business stays open long enough, the investment pays for itself gradually. Many Japanese cafe owners face a much harsher reality. Commercial leases often include a restore to original condition clause. When the lease expires, the tenant may have to remove every custom counter, cabinet, sink, and floor covering before returning the property to a bare concrete shell. That demolition can cost tens of thousands of dollars, turning the end of a lease into a major financial event. Instead of spreading renovation costs over 15 years, owners often have to recover both the construction cost and the future demolition bill within a much shorter lease period. Hidden on the balance sheet is a liability many American operators never need to plan for. Water creates another invisible expense, but for completely different reasons. Specialty coffee depends heavily on mineral content because water makes up more than 98% of every cup. In many American cities, especially areas with naturally hard water, cafes install expensive reverse osmosis systems to remove excess minerals before adding back the precise balance needed for consistent extraction. The equipment is costly to purchase and maintain, but owners consider it essential for quality. Japan faces the opposite problem. Much of its municipal water is naturally soft, containing far fewer minerals than ideal for coffee brewing. Soft water extracts acidity more aggressively, producing coffee that can taste thin or overly bright. Instead of stripping minerals away, many Japanese cafes spend money adding carefully measured minerals back into the water. The goal is identical, consistent flavor, but the chemistry runs in reverse. American owners pay to remove minerals. Japanese owners pay to replace them. Then there is waste management, an operating cost almost no customer thinks about. In many American cafes, Staff can throw cups, lids, food wrappers, and other trash into a few bins before the city's waste service handles the rest. The process is quick and rarely affects labor planning. Japanese municipalities often require businesses to separate burnable waste, plastics, PET bottles, cans, glass, and food scraps into different categories. Employees may spend nearly an hour every evening washing containers, sorting materials, and preparing garbage according to local rules. That extra work produces no additional sales, yet wages are still being paid. It functions like an invisible labor tax built into the daily operation of the business. None of these costs appear on the menu board. Customers simply see a cup of coffee. Owners see depreciation schedules, water treatment systems, demolition reserves, and compliance expenses. Those hidden obligations quietly shape every pricing decision and every profit margin. And once those fixed costs are understood, another challenge becomes impossible to ignore: paying the people who make every cup. For most cafe owners, labor is either the largest expense or the second largest after rent. The difference between making a healthy profit and barely breaking even often comes down to one question: how much does each hour of labor actually cost? In the United States, cafe economics are quietly supported by something customers often take for granted: tipping. While wage laws vary by state, tips help offset labor costs in many cafes, especially those with table service. Even in counter-service coffee shops, digital tip screens have become common. Every extra dollar a customer leaves is a dollar the owner doesn't have to generate through higher menu prices. In effect, customers help pay part of the barista's income. Japan has no comparable system. Tipping is neither expected nor encouraged. Leaving extra money can even create an awkward situation, because good service is considered part of the job, not something that earns a bonus. That means cafe owners must cover 100% of every employee's wage from the business itself. Without tips acting as an invisible subsidy, controlling payroll becomes far more important. Japanese cafes solve this problem with remarkable precision through the Pareto system, a highly flexible part-time workforce. Instead of assigning 3 employees to 8-hour shifts, a manager might schedule 6 workers for carefully planned 3-hour shifts that overlap only during the busiest periods. One barista arrives before the morning rush. Another replaces them just before lunchtime. Others cover only the afternoon dessert crowd or the early evening commute. The goal is simple: eliminate dead labor hours. Paying a skilled employee to stand behind an empty counter at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is expensive. By matching staffing almost minute for minute with customer traffic, Japanese cafes reduce idle payroll without reducing service quality. The trade-off is complexity. Creating these schedules requires careful forecasting, reliable employees, and constant adjustments when demand changes. American cafes often accept a certain amount of idle time because longer shifts are easier to manage and employee turnover is already high. Scheduling fewer people for longer hours simplifies operations, even if payroll is slightly less efficient. Japanese operators choose the opposite path. They accept the administrative challenge because even a few unnecessary labor hours each day can erase already thin profit margins. Technology is making both systems more sophisticated. Modern point-of-sale software tracks hourly sales, customer counts, and seasonal trends, allowing managers to predict demand with surprising accuracy. A rainy Tuesday morning, a nearby festival, or a public holiday can all change staffing requirements. The best operators treat scheduling as a financial tool rather than an administrative task. The contrast reveals a larger truth. American cafes often rely on customers to absorb part of their labor costs through tips. Japanese cafes rely on mathematical precision, squeezing maximum productivity from every scheduled hour. Both approaches can work, but they reflect completely different economic assumptions about who ultimately pays for service. Labor, however, is only one side of the equation. Even after wages are under control, the profitability of every cup depends on how that coffee is brewed, served, and even chilled. Those seemingly small choices create some of the biggest differences between cafes in America and Japan. Two cafes can charge the same price for a cup of coffee and still earn completely different profits. The difference isn't always the beans. Sometimes it's the brewing method. Sometimes it's the ice. Sometimes it's a decision so small that customers never notice it, yet it changes the economics of every order. Take hand-drip coffee. In many American specialty cafes, pour-over coffee is treated as a premium option, but it's carefully managed because it consumes one resource owners can never recover: time. A barista spending 4 minutes preparing one cup is a barista who isn't serving the next customer. During the morning rush, that creates a bottleneck. Many cafes solve the problem with automated batch brewers that produce several cups at once. The flavor remains consistent, labor costs stay under control, and customers receive their coffee within a minute or two. Japanese cafes often make the opposite calculation. In many Kisaten and specialty coffee shops, preparing every cup by hand is not considered inefficient. It's part of the experience customers are paying for. They expect to watch the barista slowly pour hot water over freshly ground coffee, adjusting the flow by hand until the final cup is ready. Waiting 4 or 5 minutes doesn't feel like poor service, it feels like craftsmanship. That patience changes the economics completely. Because customers see the brewing process as a premium service, they're willing to pay significantly more for each cup. The cafe spends more labor on every order, but earns a much higher gross margin in return. Instead of maximizing the number of drinks sold each hour, the business maximizes the profit generated by each individual drink. The extra labor becomes part of the product, rather than an unnecessary expense. The same pattern appears in something as ordinary as iced coffee. In America, size often defines value. Customers expect 16-ounce or even 24-ounce drinks filled with lightweight crescent-shaped ice that melts quickly. Larger cups require more coffee, more milk, and more syrup, increasing the cost of every sale. As the ice melts, the drink becomes diluted, encouraging cafes to start with even more coffee to maintain flavor. Japanese cafes frequently take a different approach. Drinks are usually served in smaller glasses packed with dense, perfectly square ice cubes made by commercial ice machines from companies like Hoshizaki. Those cubes melt much more slowly, keeping the coffee cold without watering it down. The customer enjoys a better tasting drink, while the cafe quietly serves 20 to 30% less liquid coffee than a comparable American beverage. Bean consumption falls, milk costs decrease, and margins improve without customers feeling shortchanged. The value comes from quality rather than volume. Coffee beans themselves reveal another surprising economic difference. American third-wave cafes often compete on light-roasted, single-origin coffee. These beans highlight subtle flavors, but they also expose every flaw in the raw coffee. Farmers must produce exceptionally clean cherries with minimal defects, making premium green beans expensive before roasting even begins. Japan's traditional Kisaten culture developed around darker roasts. Deep roasting caramelizes sugars, creates a bold flavor, and masks many small imperfections in the raw beans. That gives roasters more flexibility when sourcing coffee. Beans that might never appear in a high-end American light roast can still produce an enjoyable dark roast after roasting transforms their flavor. The result is an economic advantage hidden inside the roasting process itself. Owners can maintain a premium reputation while purchasing green coffee at significantly lower prices. None of these choices are accidents. They reflect a different understanding of what customers value. American cafes often compete on speed, convenience, and larger portions. Japanese cafes compete on craftsmanship, presentation, and perceived quality. Both models can succeed, but each creates a very different cost structure behind every cup served. By now, it's clear that profits depend on much more than coffee alone. Yet another invisible layer shapes every transaction before the money even reaches the owner's bank account: the payment system itself, along with the cost of finding the right location for the business. A customer taps a phone, pays for a coffee, and walks away. The transaction takes only a few seconds, but what happens after that can quietly determine how much money the cafe actually keeps. The payment system, settlement time, and even the location of the cafe all shape profitability in ways most customers never consider. In the United States, electronic payments come with a familiar cost. Every time a customer uses a credit or debit card, payment processors take a percentage of the sale. Depending on the card network and processor, cafes often lose between 2.5 and 3.5% of every transaction. That may sound insignificant, but for a business operating on thin margins, those fees accumulate quickly. A cafe generating $1 million in annual sales could easily surrender more than $30,000 before paying rent, wages, or utility bills. Some owners encourage cash payments or offer loyalty discounts, but consumer habits have changed. Most customers expect to tap a card or phone without thinking about the cost to the business. For cafe owners, payment processing has become another unavoidable operating expense. Japan follows a different path. Alongside traditional credit cards, millions of consumers use IC transit cards such as Suica and Pasmo. Originally created for trains and subways, these prepaid cards evolved into everyday payment tools accepted at convenience stores, vending machines, restaurants, and cafes. Because they operate through a closed-loop payment network, merchant fees are often significantly lower than those charged by international credit card companies. The savings appear small on a single purchase, but become meaningful over thousands of transactions. Keeping an extra 1 or 2% of gross revenue can be the difference between a profitable month and one that barely breaks even. Many IC card systems also settle payments faster than traditional credit card processors, improving cash flow. Money reaches the owner's account sooner, making it easier to pay suppliers and employees without relying on credit. Real estate creates another striking contrast. In American cities, visibility is everything. Independent cafes compete fiercely for street-level storefronts because foot traffic drives impulse purchases. A busy corner with large windows and constant pedestrian activity can justify rents that consume a substantial share of monthly revenue. Owners often accept those costs because customers rarely search for coffee hidden upstairs. Japan turns that assumption upside down. In many commercial districts, the most valuable ground floor locations are occupied by large chains such as Starbucks, Douta, or Pronto. Competing directly against those companies would force independent cafes into an expensive rent battle they are unlikely to win. Instead, many independent operators choose second or third floor spaces where rents can be 50 to 70% lower. At first glance, giving up street visibility seems risky. Yet Japanese consumers are accustomed to looking for restaurants and cafes above ground level. Elevator directories and building signs guide customers upstairs, and loyal visitors return regardless of floor number. What would be a major disadvantage in New York or Los Angeles becomes a powerful financial advantage in Tokyo or Osaka. This strategy is known as vertical rent arbitrage. Owners trade spontaneous walk-in traffic for dramatically lower fixed costs. The savings on rent can be redirected toward better equipment, higher quality ingredients, or simply stronger profits. In a business where margins are often measured in single digits, reducing one of the largest monthly expenses can completely reshape the economics of ownership. These hidden financial systems reveal an important pattern. American cafes often spend more to maximize convenience and visibility. Japanese cafes frequently sacrifice visibility to reduce fixed costs and improve long-term stability. Neither model is universally superior because each evolved to match local consumer behavior. After comparing revenue models, operating costs, labor, production, payment systems, and real estate, one final question remains. Which country actually offers the better business opportunity for someone who wants to own a cafe? After comparing every major part of the business, the answer becomes less straightforward than many people expect. Neither America nor Japan has discovered the perfect cafe model. Each country has built a system that reflects its own customers, costs, and culture. What looks like an advantage in one market can become a serious disadvantage in the other. For owners focused on growth, America offers clear opportunities. A successful cafe can scale quickly through drive-through locations, mobile ordering, franchising, and larger average ticket sizes. Customers buy oversized drinks, seasonal promotions generate spikes in demand, and a strong morning rush can produce impressive daily sales. But that growth comes with higher rents, expensive payment processing fees, rising labor costs, and intense competition from both independent cafes and national chains. A single slow month can quickly strain cash flow when fixed costs are high. Japan rewards a different type of operator. Expansion is usually slower, but customer loyalty tends to be stronger. Regular visitors often stop by the same cafe several times each week, creating predictable revenue. Lower rents in upper-floor locations reduce financial pressure, while efficient scheduling and lower payment processing fees help protect already thin margins. At the same time, owners must absorb the full cost of employee wages, navigate strict waste sorting regulations, and prepare for costly lease restoration obligations that many American operators never face. In many ways, the comparison reflects two philosophies of business. American cafes chase growth by increasing transaction volume. Japanese cafes protect profitability by controlling costs and strengthening customer relationships. One model depends on serving more people. The other depends on serving the same people more often. The better business, therefore, depends on the person running it. An entrepreneur who excels at marketing, scaling operations, and handling rapid growth may thrive in the American system. Someone who values operational precision, repeat customers, and long-term stability may find Japan's model more attractive. Ultimately, the most successful cafe owners are not the ones who make the best coffee. They are the ones who understand the economic rules of the market they operate in, and that may be the most valuable lesson hidden inside every cup. At first glance, comparing cafes in America and Japan looks like a comparison of menus, coffee beans, or customer preferences. But after looking beneath the surface, it's clear that coffee was never the real business. Every cup sits on top of an economic system built from hundreds of invisible decisions. How quickly customers are expected to order, whether breakfast earns a profit or builds loyalty, how employees are scheduled, what kind of water flows through the espresso machine, how much rent is paid for a storefront, even the shape of an ice cube or the fee charged by a payment processor quietly changes the owner's bottom line. America's cafe model rewards speed, convenience, and scale. The business is designed to move customers through the store as efficiently as possible. High sales volume makes up for thinner margins, and success often depends on keeping the morning rush moving without interruption. Growth is the goal, and every operational decision supports that objective. Japan follows a different path. Many cafes willingly slow the experience down because time itself becomes part of the product. A carefully prepared hand-drip coffee, a complimentary breakfast, or a quiet second-floor location all encourage customers to return again and again. Instead of maximizing today's transaction, many owners focus on maximizing a customer's value over many years. Neither approach is inherently superior. America's system can generate higher revenue and faster expansion, but it also exposes owners to expensive rents, fierce competition, and payment processing costs that quietly reduce every sale. Japan's system offers stronger customer loyalty and lower real estate costs in many locations, yet owners must absorb higher labor responsibilities, strict operating regulations, and significant lease restoration expenses that rarely exist in the United States. The biggest mistake an aspiring cafe owner can make is copying what works somewhere else without understanding why it works there. A morning service that builds loyal customers in suburban Japan might fail completely in downtown Chicago. Likewise, an American-style drive-through could struggle in neighborhoods where customers expect coffee to be an experience rather than a convenience. That lesson extends far beyond cafes. Every successful business is shaped by the market around it. Consumer habits, local regulations, labor markets, real estate, and payment systems all influence profitability far more than most people realize. Great entrepreneurs don't simply import successful ideas. They adapt those ideas to fit the economic environment they're entering. So, which country offers the better cafe business? The answer isn't America. It isn't Japan. The better business is the one designed for the people it serves. Because in the cafe industry, the product isn't just coffee. The real product is a business model that quietly fits the culture, economics, and everyday habits of its customers. Once you understand that, you'll never look at your neighborhood coffee shop the same way again.